My name is Beth Rodeo. I am a founding member of No Sharing Gas Pipeline and a member of the Mothers Out Front Pipeline Task Force. I'll be emceeing today. We are here today to announce the new group, Mass Healthcare Providers Against Fracked Gas, and announce their call for a hold on all new major fracked gas infrastructure in Massachusetts until health concerns are taken into account. Mass Healthcare Providers Against Fracked Gas is a group of concerned healthcare providers who seek to protect the health and well-being of patients, families, and communities in the face of major new fracked gas infrastructure and in the face of climate change. If you would like to connect with them, please see Susan Lees. She has a contact sheet. She's raising her hand. Our press person is Karen Chase, a nurse who lives locally and resides part-time in a town that was impacted by the former Kinder Morgan Northeast Energy Direct Pipeline route. Karen has identified herself for the press. For about 20 minutes, we will be hearing from 4 speakers, then open it up for questions from the press. This event is being videotaped and will be available on our website. Excuse the ambient noise in the background. We are standing directly in front of the construction going on in this pipeline right now. Our next speaker is Dr. Curtis Nordgaard, a pediatrician and educator activist on the public health risks of fracked gas pipelines and infrastructure. He conducts air pollution and other research and has traveled to communities in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire faced with compressor stations to educate the residents on the health risks of these stations. Please welcome Dr. Nordgaard.
Thank you, Beth, for that introduction. And I'd like to thank you all for coming out here today on what could be a beautiful morning here in West Roxbury. And instead of enjoying this quiet morning, we're dealing with the construction noise that's going on behind us, where a compressor metering and regulating station is being built right across from people's homes. And if you're here today, you can look around and see how close that station is to the people living in this neighborhood. I want to also be sure to thank all of the people who made today's event a reality and the people who made our organization a reality, not least of whom, I don't want to overlook anybody, but I certainly have to mention out one person who's been really instrumental in making this all happen, Susan Lees, with our organization, but also with Mothers Out Front. Thank you very much, Susan, for all your hard work, and everyone else as well. As Beth mentioned, I've had the honor of visiting a number of communities around New England and sharing what we know about what we used to call natural gas, but is really better described as fracked gas, since it's now produced by fracking in Pennsylvania and other states. And sharing what we know about our growing reliance on fracked gas and the infrastructure that comes along with that, and how those things might affect our health. One thing that I found to be generally true in all communities is that people really are concerned about health. We're concerned about our individual health. We're concerned about the health of our children. We're concerned about the health of our families, our neighbors, and our communities. And regardless of whether we're talking about a metering and regulating station, compressor station, liquefied natural gas facility, power plant, these are all fracked gas infrastructure that have the potential to impact our health. So that's true, but during the time that I've been going around and speaking on these issues, another thing has become clearly apparent to me, and that is that this fracked gas we're talking about might be primarily composed of methane, which in and of itself is a potent driver of climate change and very harmful to the environment. But at the same time, this fracked gas also contains a number of toxic and cancer-causing substances. When this gas is burned, it does not burn cleanly. When the gas is burned, it also releases a number of toxic and cancer-causing substances. I say that's generally true because it's not my conclusion. That information is available in publicly released documents released by the very companies that are delivering this gas into our state and burning it. So I think those two things are generally true. We all care about our health, and this gas poses a real health risk, whether it's directly from the gas or the way that we're utilizing it in our state. So it just begs the question, I think, when you put those two things together, how might our growing reliance on fracked gas and our build out of frack gas infrastructure, like the project behind us today, how might these things impact our health? Unfortunately, we don't have all the data that we need to really answer that question, but we do have a tool at our disposal that we heard about from Dr. Kochi, and that tool is the Comprehensive Health Impact Assessment. As Dr. Kochi mentioned, we've prepared a technical report which goes into detail and describes what comprehensive health impact assessments are, why we should be conducting them for these projects, and how we might implement them in our state. You can find that along with our call for a moratorium on new projects on our website. I encourage you to read both of those documents and learn more about these issues, either there and also through our Facebook page. You can also email us to get those documents. I had thought about reading that list, but rather than do that, I'd encourage you to look at it on your own, and instead I want to share a story that helps illustrate why we should be conducting health assessments as part of these projects. Right now, they only need to undergo projects like this, meaning regulating station, pipelines, other infrastructure, only undergo environmental assessments. Human health is only a secondary consideration for these projects. One of the projects that stands with me most as a pediatrician and a parent is a compressor station which would have been built as part of Kinder Morgan's Northeast Energy Direct pipeline. One of the stations on the pipeline would have been built half a mile from an elementary school. From the data available to us, we know that that compressor station could have released so much formaldehyde into the air that it could have caused acute and chronic toxic effects for the children attending that school if it had been built. At the same time, it also could have increased the risk of certain formaldehyde-related cancers for children attending that school. Was that part of the environmental assessment for that project? It was not. The environmental reports for that project pointed out that the air pollution from that facility would not violate federal air quality standards as part of the environmental review. Those standards only relate to a few of the major air pollutants. They did not address formaldehyde. What do you tell those families that would have sent their children to a school every day where they could have been exposed to toxic amounts of formaldehyde that might have increased their risk of cancer? That was not part of the environmental assessment. If we had comprehensive health impact assessments for that project and many others like it that are being planned or built in the state right now, we could address these health questions and concerns. Right now, it's all a mystery because these questions are not being asked. They're not being included in the review process. They may be asked by residents. They're not being included as part of the formal assessment. Fortunately, that station will hopefully never be built. The project is on hold or canceled indefinitely.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we are clearly facing infrastructure like the one being built behind us across the street from people's homes, compressor and an active blasting quarry on the other side of the street, compressor stations in Weymouth, Rehoboth, a pipeline expansion in western Massachusetts, pipelines all across the state, a liquefied natural gas facility in Acushnet, frack gas power plants like the one being built in Salem. So this issue is not going away. These health questions are not going to go away, and they will not be addressed until comprehensive health impact assessments become a part of the environmental or complement the environmental review process. And again, I'd like to end with a note of optimism that we do have a tool right now that we can begin answering those questions. In fact, New Hampshire is leading the way. I recently found out that New Hampshire has enacted regulations that require comprehensive health impact assessments be completed for any high-pressure frack gas pipeline that's built in the state moving forward. So my final question today, I've raised a few, but I want to end with one question. As we look around the state, as we look around the people who have made the effort to come out here today, when will our communities have the benefit of a comprehensive health impact assessment for the infrastructure that's being considered for our communities? Fortunately, we have a path moving forward. Our organization hopes to move forward from today's press release and work with all of you and make that a reality for our communities. Thank you for coming.
For coming this morning and hearing not only about the important research done on the health risks of fracked gas pipeline infrastructure, but the stories of how they can impact citizens of the Commonwealth. Are there any questions from the press? The question is, what are the next steps for this new organization?
One of the first things that we did as an organization was develop a list of goals, calling for a moratorium until health impact assessments are instituted, accomplishes or is moving us towards meeting several of our goals. We put a lot of our resources into preparing for this event, and we're going to be meeting to plan our next steps. We will always continue investigating these projects and learning more about them, but I anticipate that we're going to be moving forward with our work to make this health assessment issue a reality for these projects. And so both as an organization and in coalition with other organizations in the state. So the question is, does the state have to do a health assessment for these projects, or just environmental or safety assessments? There is no requirement to conduct a health impact assessment for any of these projects, and certainly for the ones I'm most familiar with, the health assessment is never done. That's why we're calling for a moratorium.
So Curt, would you be interested in finding legislative sponsors and trying to make that part of mandated, legislatively mandated practice?
The question is, would we want to meet with find elected officials, especially at the state level, and make this a legislative priority? That is one of the options we're going to consider, and it's also possible that we could follow the path of New Hampshire and work on the regulations in the state on a more agency or executive branch path.
What can we do? Somebody else want to?
So the question is, what can we do? For one thing, you're here today. One thing that we have to do is ensure that both our organization and other organizations in the state are networking, because as we heard from the last speaker, it's only by working together that we can make this happen. I've been very impressed with how well New Hampshire has been organized for quite some time, and we have a lot of people who are involved with these different issues in the state. And again, health is a common denominator for all of these projects, along with climate change. And certainly, we're going to need to all work together if we're going to make this happen. So we'll be in touch.
Is there a plan to file a bill in January? I think the deadline for filing bills for the next two-year legislative session is January 2017. Has anyone gotten started on writing a bill like the one in New Hampshire?
Yeah. The question is, the deadline for filing a bill for the next legislative session is coming up in January. Are we making any movement on that? We have been internally organizing over the summer, and as I said, to answer your question, we don't have a bill right now, but that is going to be one of the options we consider. Do we try and make that happen now? We could, for example, form a coalition with all of the great work being done on gas leaks, and that would be one way to introduce this issue, is again a partnership with everybody who's activated on that issue.
Have you done any reaching out and gotten any response from anyone within the city of Boston, like the Boston Health Commission or the Boston Public Health Department?
Yeah. The question is, have we done any outreach or had any communication with city officials like the Public Health Commission? I actually just as an aside, I happen to work with the medical director of the Public Health Commission. When I brought this issue up with him, he already informed me that community members had been in touch with him. His position is that everything happening with the West Roxbury lateral is outside of his domain, and that's because the systems right now do not address health directly, and so he's able to take that position. I have not yet been able to bear enough pressure on him to play an active role. But the environmental reviews that we talk about for these projects are part of the National Environmental Policy Act. It's really outdated. The way that they address climate change is incredibly superficial and outdated. It doesn't at all keep up with the science. And that's where something like a health impact assessment is something that can be flexible. It can incorporate all of the data. If you look at some of the health assessments that have been done in the city, some of them are great. Incorporate great data, conduct great analyses. We could be doing that for these projects, which clearly have the potential to affect our health.
So I will just mention that as part of this event today, we have sent letters to the governor, to our legislators, we've sent letters to our governor, to our legislators, to others, elected officials in public health areas, calling for the moratorium. This is sort of our opening salvo into making a comprehensive health impact assessment happen. So that has gone out today.
Thank you all for coming. I want to say that if you want to read the moratorium now, Susan has copies, or as they said, you can go online to their website. Thank you. The website is MHCPAFG.org. Thank you.